Thank you for tuning in again. This is Melvin York, and you are listening to Gardening with Daddy Pete. In our last segment, we started and launched a new video podcast that we're so excited about here at Daddy Pete's, and hoping that we can maybe help some of you guys start your gardenings. I know that sometimes that things looks more scary than what it really is. A lot of people think, well, I can't start a garden. I don't have a green thumb. I can't start a garden. It's not going to be successful. Well, that's what we're here for, to do, is to help you be successful. Our motto at Daddy Pete is we help you grow, and that's exactly what we intend to do. So we need you. If you go on to our webpage, which is daddypetes.com. You may ask questions. You can ask questions after this podcast. Let us know what you're having problems with, what questions you may have about different varieties or how-tos, and that's what we want to do. We're going to briefly today go back over the 10 steps, and I call them the 10 major steps of starting and planting your garden. This is something that I would say that you do several of them each and every year. And if you've ever listened to my podcast before without the video, just the audio versions, you'll know that I'm a big stickler for a journal. Last time, if you'll go back to part 1, you can see that I give you a couple examples of good journals that you can that can be purchased off of Amazon, which I think these are great. If you're a new garden, I would suggest that you buy both. Now, gardening does do this. Let me get you prepared. Gardening does take time. It's a great hobby. It's a great way to get out and let the stress out at the end of the day on the weekends. It's very rewarding when a garden is done right. Is rewarding into the part that, hey, look what I've grown. And again, it also helps being frugal. If you bought vegetables at the grocery store lately, you know how expensive they are. You also know what the quality is. There is nothing like going out to the garden, picking that ripe tomato, that zucchini that's fresh, the green beans that's fresh, and taking them straight from the garden to the kitchen, and you're going to find out just how rewarding the taste, the nutrition, and the savings are. Now, if you're starting a garden for the first time, there's several things you need to do. We talked about it briefly on the last segment, and I'm going to go back over those again and just a little more extensive so we can make sure that you are successful. Number 1, get you a pad and pencil out. Go through and decide what you and your family like as far as vegetables go, and what you would like to grow this up and coming season. Now, we talked about seasons. We're in the Piedmont, North Carolina. We have the luxury we can grow a cold weather crop, which is early spring and summer crop, which is number 2, and number 3, which is the fall crop, is back to cold weather. Different plants like different temperatures. Different vegetables grow well in colder or cooler seasons, whereas your summer crops like more heat and more sunlight. Again, these are things that you're going to find out when you go through and do your homework on varieties, planting times, harvest times. One thing we didn't talk about was time of harvest. And if you'll notice on your seed pack or in the information in your seed catalog, it'll give you 65 days, maybe that's what the days is going to be from the time of planting until the time of harvest. And some sweet corns like that. That's just one right off the top of my head. Watermelons, on the other hand, might be 75 days. Green beans may be 55 days. So these are the times to do you plan out. Another thing you want to look at too when you're doing is planting a garden is, and especially for your summer crops, which would be your green beans, transplanting your tomatoes, your peppers, planting cucumbers or setting out transplants, all of those, okra. These are crops that need to be planted after the last frost date in your area. Now you can get all this information usually from your extension service, and most areas have a county extension agent, and that's based usually after your state agricultural college or your state extension. So that would be a good way to find those out. Now, just to give you a overview again, let's make sure that you do, if you don't know what zone you're in, make sure that you do go to your website of the USDA hardiness zone, and that's a map that gives you and tells you what area and planting zone you're in. Usually when you go there, you can just type in your zip code and it'll come up with that. Now the reason you want to know that zone is on a lot of your seed packets, and again with your extension service, it will tell you what crop will perform good in that area. Not all crops will grow in those zones. You take, for instance, if you live on the coast of South Carolina, your zone is going to be different than what our zone is in Piedmont, North Carolina. Piedmont, North Carolina is going to be different from the zone that's in the mountains of Virginia. So you need to know what zone you're in so that you may grow these crops. Now, vegetable wise, do you want to plant there's 3 different kinds of seeds. We started talking about 2 of them. We didn't get to the 3rd. First of all, one is an heirloom seed. That's one that you can save the seed from, and it grows back the same year after year, and you can save the seed. We talked about the hybrid seed. A hybrid's usually a cross of 2 or more of your heirloom seeds, and that is a 1-year crop. It's going to produce what it was designed for that first year. If you save the seeds from them, you're just roll the dice. You don't know what the seed's going to look like next time. Usually it will tend to go to the more dominant of the 2nd or 3rd cross of the seed that was crossed with. Then again, we have the GMO seed. You hear a lot about GMOs. GMO seeds are genetically modified or genetically engineered seeds, and these seeds usually are modified genetically so that the crop can take on a herbicide or an insecticide without killing the plant. So GMOs is something you don't want in your garden. Okay, hybrids is okay, but you just know that you don't save the seed off of them and you get the one, because usually the hybrids are saved or crossed with the seeds that you can save the seed off of, which is your heirloom variety or open pollinated. So those are okay. Just know that you don't have the opportunity or the luxury of saving the seed off of those for next year, but with the heirlooms you do. So that's something that you want to really concentrate on. Now let me talk just a little bit more on that. Why would we want to do a hybrid over an heirloom? Tomatoes is a biggie on that. Some of your heirloom variety of tomatoes, they actually are wilt prone, some of the disease prone. Most of the times it doesn't hurt the fruit, but you'll see things like leaf curl. Sometimes you can see different things that goes on with the fruit where imperfections do occur on some of the older heirloom seeds. They don't grow as smooth, they grow more sometimes knotty, and the next one might be just smooth and perfect, but that's the characteristics a lot of time of the heirloom. Whereas you go to the hybrid, they have crossing some, you do lose some of the ability for them to take on disease like the wilt and all, and there's different wilt varieties, and when you're reading your seed you can see that on the back of your pack, if it's resistant to some forms of wilt or some forms of disease. So that's things that you want to look after too, just to give you an idea on that. Now, by planting this garden, again, you need to make up your mind on how much space you got. And by sitting down and deciding what plant you want, it will tell you the space between each plant. You need to figure out, do I have enough space in, say, an outside row garden, or one that I don't have borders, that I just go through and till the ground and start planting in rows or in segments. Number two, a raised bed garden. Easier to take care of on a smaller variety. You can control the watering more. The weeding is easier to control. Do I have room for raised beds, and how many? And you kind of look at the square footage on what you're going to need depending on what you're wanting to plant. We're going to do a longer segment coming up here in the next week or two on companion planting. The reason we want to do that is there's a lot of crops that does not get along well with the other ones, so we want to make sure that you, in your beds, yes, you can plant different crops, but we want to make sure that you have the right ones and they perform well. One of the old methods for planting, and we'll need to do this either in a larger raised bed or in the ground row gardening type, is called the Three Sisters. Three Sisters was one that the native had used for years and years, and they would plant corn. They would wait until the corn got about 6 inches high. They would go in beside it, and they would use a variety of beans that was climbing. They would plant it close to the corn stalk, and so it would have a way to support the climbing of the bean, but a bean is a legume which also produces nitrogen, which helps feed the corn. And then on the outer area they would plant their squash or zucchini, which in turn shaded the ground and helped keep the moisture right. So that was probably one of the first forms of companion planting that all three of those help together. A lot of times there's a fourth added into that Three Sisters, and that's marigolds. Marigolds is an annual that does help insects repellent, and it's a natural way to do that. So that's another thing that you want to look at on that. But the main thing is you get your list out, you find out how much area you're going to need and which way you're going to go, because we're going to do segments even on building your raised bed garden. Just a tip, if you build any raised bed gardenings, and the length really doesn't make any difference, but the width, you don't want to go over 3 feet wide, 3.5 at the most. 3 feet's better, because you want it where you can reach across and get into your beds and pick your vegetables without walking all into the beds. And even in weeding, you can do that with the 3 to 3.5 foot width. Length doesn't make any difference. You can let it run as long as you want to. But in the upcoming weeks, what we're going to be talking about is maybe you want a strawberry bed. We're going to teach you how to do that. Maybe you want, right now you need beds just dedicated for lettuce and early spring onions and greens, different greens. All of these are cool weather crops. You can do that, harvest those out, and we're going to tell you which plants you can put back into that bed for the spring and summer, and then which plants you can take back out and go again for the fall. So if you're in the right area, you're in the right hardiness zones, you know your frost dates, all of these can be achieved, which makes your beds and your gardening more and more and more profitable, and a longer term of fresh vegetables. I have actually planted green beans in pots in the fall, where I could actually take them in from the little bit of frost we usually have. We call it, that period of time in fall where you get your first frost, and then it warms back up after I've done that. I've actually picked green beans a week before Thanksgiving because I can move them in mobile, bring them back out, carry on with it, and they've done wonderful. And I was eating fresh green beans for Thanksgiving dinner. So the mobility of the pots or the raised beds where you can cover during those frost times is a great way to do it. It's a luxury that you don't have if you're doing row gardening. So these are some of the things to consider when you're doing all of that. So if you'll, just keep tuned in to us, and we're going to cover some more of these areas for you, and get into choosing some of the tomatoes, some of your varieties. Once you're making yourself familiar with those, then we'll go through and we'll start giving you those. I'll give you my favorites on what works good in this area, and you can check it out, see if it works good in the area that you're in also. Another thing is, I want to remind you again that I will be in Greensboro at the Green and Growing Show, the North Carolina Green and Growing Show, and it's at the Greensboro Coliseum. I'll be there on January the 22nd, which is Thursday, and Friday, January the 23rd. So come on out. You'll get to see, we're in booth 907. I'll be more than glad to talk to you there. You'll get to see some of the new varieties of plants that's out. If landscaping's your things, if bare root trees or plants your thing, all the different machinery, the new technology, these are things that you can see when you're planning on planting your garden and even your landscape. And one other thing I want to mention before we're going to go, because we are getting close on time here. Well, I really don't have place for pots. I don't want to do pots, or I don't know if I want to go raise bed. Try this year. Put some plants into your landscape. One thing about vegetable plants are beautiful. Nothing's more beautiful than the huge leaves of a squash or zucchini plant. Find a place to put them in your existing landscape. You can do that with tomato plants, with pepper plants. Stick them around and do that there, and you will find that you'll really enjoy it. The front of some of your beds and borders, plant that early with your lettuce, with beets. Beets are a two-way street. Great greens you can get off of there to add to your salad. Pick some of those and then hang on for the beets later. Just use your mind. Let your mind go wild when it comes to gardening. Keep in mind, it's your garden. It's your landscape. Do it what works for you. So these are some of the ways that you can get into gardening just a little bit at a time if you want to try that. But anyway, we're here to help you do that. If you go to our website or at the end of this podcast, you can always ask a question. We will get you an answer. If there's a topic that you would like me to cover, either one of these ways, you can get to me. We will cover the topic. If it's a disease question, if it's a how-to question, if it's a variety question, please do. And let me remind you, there is no bad questions. The only way that we learn is asking questions, and we do welcome all your questions, and we will take time to give them an answer here. So what we'd like to do here at Daddy Pete's, our motto is we help you grow, and again, that's what we're doing here today. I thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, this has been Melvin York with Gardening with Daddy Pete.